Welcome back to LendAPI Academy. My name is Kay, and in this series we're going to be exploring our LendAPI new and improved pricing engine. Our LendAPI pricing engine can also be thought as a decision engine. It allows for the users to be able to automate and generate decisioning directly within the LendAPI ecosystem. We can also output different data points and outcomes within this feature as well. What makes it so different than a standard decision tree is that it can operate within a range. So instead of binary decisions or binary data, it can generate data that comes from a range or an absolute value. So to get started, simply navigate over to our pricing engine feature, click the new pricing engine, and type in your pricing engine name. You'll notice in this modal, there are going to be two main engine types. The first is going to be your parent pricing engine, and the second is going to be your child pricing engine. The parent pricing engine is also known as the main pricing engine. It allows for the pricing engine to generate different fields directly versus a child. It has to be connected to a parent. So this parent-child relationship is really helpful for users that want to, say, have a nested table or have a table that drives to another table. So if you want an outcome to drive to another pricing engine, simply set the second one as your child. So with that, you have the parent as my first one, and then I can get started. When you navigate into the pricing engine, two main things to note. The first of which is this is where your sample field is going to live. This is where you would upload your data points in this left panel, also known as our canvas field here. And then the right panel, which is a common design feature within LendAPI, is our controls panel. This is where you control the behavior of your pricing engine, including when and where to trigger said engine and how the input and output field mappings go. So let's get started. To get started, the first thing you have to do is select a sample offer table. You can use our sample template here to get started if you don't have anything. If you do, you can upload the field directly. To upload a sample table, please make sure all of your tables are actually saved in a Excel format. Once you upload it, you'll see that all of your fields are ready and available here. A couple things to note is there are going to be a few columns that you can leverage within the LendAPI ecosystem. The first of which, this column is going to essentially be your static anchor column. We call this column the header and operator. This gives the LendAPI platform a starting place to read each line item. So when the platform reads operator, it knows to go to line A4 to start reading loan number 1. In this column, you can actually input any sort of naming schemes that you want. Secondary to that, we have our conditions. For each pricing engine, you can have as many conditions as you want. A condition in this field is also known as an input field. This is what you input to the table to derive out an action. So in this condition, we are going to utilize VantageScore, state, and loan amount. Conditions can come in two stages. One is a range and one is an absolute value. A range has to have a numeric value associated with it, whereas an absolute value or equal operator sign can be both a string or a numeric symbol. And then finally, secondary to that is our actions column. Actions are essentially the equivalent of an output field within LendAPI. Actions are what gets spat out by each field once the user navigates here. So let's say, for example, my VantageScore is between 720 to 760 say $750. I live in the state of Texas. My loan amount is around $550. Then here are my actions. I can have an auto pay loan type. Here's my interest rate, here's my payment frequency, and here's my loan amount that I'm eligible for. And these will be set up by each user. So once you've uploaded successfully your actions and your conditions, you can start mapping it. The first thing you want to do is take a look at the trigger field. The trigger field in the pricing engine allows you to indicate when this pricing engine gets triggered. This is how we trigger everything within the LendAPI system. It is, of course, always driven out by outcomes. Outcomes are the main driver for everything in LendAPI. So once this outcome has been reached, either through our Rules Studio or through our agent dashboard, this pricing engine will get triggered. Secondary to that is we have to assign a product to this pricing engine. This means that for users, please assign a product that deals with this pricing engine, whether it's one from your product studio or an external product. This tells this pricing engine where this application is going to run. So if I run buy now, pay later, and this product outcome gets generated, then we know this pricing engine is going to come out. And then finally, the next two things to note are you can assign a tenant for this pricing engine to generate for a specific tenant. This feature allows you to be able to assign specific pricing engines to specific tenants. This feature is great because this could mean that if you have different tenants, meaning different brokerages, different affiliate marketing, each of them can have their own specific set of terms and conditions you want to generate. And then, of course, there is the child tree concept. This child tree allows for this child offer table allows for this pricing engine to generate once you reach a certain threshold, and then what the next step would be. So if you do assign a child pricing engine to your table, you can trigger this FICO score, for example, after all of this has been run. And now let's go through our mapping exercise. For each pricing engine, we have an input mapping field and an output mapping field. Input mapping field can be mapped to all of the conditions here. For example, credit score can be mapped to Vantage score. And then output mapping can be mapped to all the actions. One particular note for output mapping is output mapping can only be mapped to what we call our system output variables. For those of you who are not familiar, system output variables are set in our Model Studio. So when you are ready to map out your system output variable, you can generate something like interest rate and map it to this specific action column. This will mean that once this action has been reached, it will store this number in this variable, and you can retrieve this variable at any point, either for decisioning or for to show in your UI. And then the final feature here is what we call our derived variable. Derived mapping happens only if you have a derived column. And to set a derived column, you simply enter in, similar to action 1 through 5, you can enter in derived, the word derived 1 through 5. This will indicate where the derived variables come. And of course, as always, derived mapping has to be mapped to a derived variable, again set in Model Studio. And one of the particularly cool things about derived mapping is you can actually write in an Excel formula inside of your column and cell and map that formula to be static or to be dynamic for each derived variable. So with that, we've gone through all the exercises of Pricing Engine. And when you're ready, you can test out your Pricing Engine and publish. As always, please note our Pricing Engine is also version controlled. like everything else within LendAPI. So when you're ready to publish, the latest published version will be available for you to access. And as always, this ends our episode 1 of our pricing engine series. Please come back for the next couple of episodes where we will explore how to connect our pricing engine back to our Rule Studio and Product Studio. And as always, please follow and subscribe for more content. Thank you.